Hello, my name's Troy Colmer, and I'd like to welcome you to the Global Health Rebellion. Our mission is to give you all the tools that you need to get in the best shape of your life, to show you a better way, a faster way. Today, I have another very special guest. I've seemed to be getting all these very special guests lately. I'm incredibly lucky. This is Louisa from Feel Good Astrology. She's from not originally from Portugal, but she's in Portugal at the moment. She's going to enlighten us on all things astrology today, plus a whole lot of other things that we'll probably get into. Like I always say at the start, I don't like to say what I'm going to talk about because it's never what I talk about. So, hello, Louisa, how are you today?
I'm very well, even though it's just like 7:05 in the morning.
Yeah, we're in opposite time zones, that's for sure. And
Yeah,
it's a lot
thank you
warmer
for having
there.
me on your. Yeah, it's really hot here.
Yeah,
Super hot.
yeah.
But thankfully the sun hasn't come up yet, so I'm not like sweating like a mess. Thanks for having me on your show. Thanks for inviting me. I
Oh, yeah,
appreciate that.
no worries. Um, because I wasn't a fan. I've told you this before that I wasn't a fan of astrology because the reason I don't like all those things is because I know how manifesting works, and that once the seed goes in your mind, and then you automatically start to manifest it. But now I'm starting to change my tune a little bit. Yeah, because now I'm sort of thinking that if you if you use the manifesting tools
Mhm.
alongside your chart, like if you
Yeah,
to so that makes the flow better, so that
yeah.
you're not going against the current all the time. So
Mm.
that's what I'm starting to think. But before we get into that, what if you would like to tell the lucky listeners what a little bit about yourself and how you
Sure.
landed in Portugal, and also how you become Feel Good Astrology.
Sure. It's a bit of a circuitous route. Like, I've never done anything in a straightforward way. It's always been kind of curvy and ups and downs, and nothing's that straight with me, to be fair. Um, so I'm from the UK, which you might hear from my accent. And me and my husband and two children, we moved to Portugal about 6 years ago, and we've had a third child out here. Um, as a kid, I was a bit of a rebel, but not a very obvious rebel because, yes, I felt rebellious and I've always asked loads of questions, but I was also a very good girl. Although my parents never thought I was, but I was always like a people pleaser, but really wanting to have my own way, or at least to explore life from my own perspective. And from a really early age, I was really sick of being told how my reality was. And no doubt I was a really annoying 2 year old. The moment, I was talking, most likely I was asking loads of different questions and difficult questions that my parents didn't want to ask or answer, sorry. I was always fascinated by consciousness. I used to feel things around me and say, oh, look, there's a knife flying through the air. And my mum and dad would be like, what the hell are you on about? There's no knife, Louisa. But I used to feel things in my room and I say, oh, I can hear breathing, I can hear words, I can, and I would smell things. There were a few things that my mum and dad were conscious of, and that was when I was happy, there was a smell that came across the room that smelled really nice, and they acknowledged that there was something unusual about me as a kid. That when I was really happy, um, and it's not happened since as an adult, but as a child, like my parents used it to be able to find the right house for us to live in. So they went to loads of houses and they watched my reaction, me freaking out, and then me being very content, and that's the house they bought. So yeah, I was really intuitive as a kid. Um, but going into mainstream education at an early age, I did well because I was a goody two shoes and I wanted to do well. But I never really fitted in. I was always thinking, why the hell are we studying this? What's this got to do with my life? And by the time I was about 9, I was thinking, all right, so I'm going to school every day so that I can work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Crikey, that's an awful use of the life. I had this feeling that life was sacred, and that we should live something really great. And I couldn't see that working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday was necessarily a good life. As I looked at the kind of prescribed blueprint, I thought, flipping heck, that doesn't, like, why the hell am I here? And I had this sense that I didn't belong here. And I had this real strong sense that, crikey, I don't want that blueprint. That sounds crap. It's not for me. And when I was about 11, my mum and dad gave me pocket money. And, most kids go to the sweet shop or something like that. And I went to the secondhand bookshop. I was always fascinated with books. And so I saw this book, and it had palmistry in, astrology, graphology, like looking at handwriting, phrenology, looking at the bumps in the head and stuff. And so I bought this with all my pocket money. I bought this big dictionary of different kind of codes and programs like you're talking about, Troy. And I basically I've always taught myself, like I taught myself piano when I was younger, with no lessons. And so this book, I just sat down with it and was learning everything I could, because I wanted to understand, like, why the hell am I here again? Like, what's going on? I just needed to understand stuff. And it's funny because you said I'm not always, I don't know if I believe in astrology because of like the whole idea of manifesting and energy. And I have to say, Troy, I have times when I'm really into astrology, and there are times when I say, hang on a sec, this must just be a load of old bullshit. Sorry, is that okay to say that?
You say what you want on this podcast.
So, and then other times I'm like, what? How can I believe this? This must be a bullshit. And then I stop doing what I do and I throw it out and I think, okay, I'm not ready for that. And then my clients will come back and say, look, that bullshit that you're doing, I want more of it. And then all of a sudden something brings me back in. And then I realize, so I question everything, even what I do, even though I've been doing it for years. I've often questioned it. And I think we should. I think it's really good to question what we think we know, because every day we change, every day we evolve, and who knows where we're going to be. But if we, my experience is when we, I always look at nature, and the thing that really occurs to me the most is when you plant in your garden, plants, when they're healthy, they can move, they can flex, and they grow. And then when they're getting to the end of their life cycle, they start to dry up and they become brittle. And then eventually, like, they either get knocked over by the wind, they fall over, but they desiccate, and then you know that they're gone. And I think that's the same with humans. You only need to go to an old people's home to see that. But I think we desiccate when we hold our views in place. So if we believe this is the way it is, sure, some people do thrive on that kind of knowledge, but I think where we hold ourselves in place and believe one thing and don't question things, we're desiccating ourselves. We're bringing about an early death, the death of the spirit. I'm also dramatic, but that's another story. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but yeah, I grew up with that kind of thing, and I made it my thing. And then as a teenager, I was quite shy, and I would use palmistry and cards to give me some skills and to make friends. Everyone likes to know about themselves, so that was quite helpful. And I would just practice. And then when I was 19, instead of going to university, actually when I was 18, I went and lived in France, instead of going to university, and I started formally studying astrology. And then in my 20s, I thought, this astrology thing, it's still seen as a bit weird. So I said, I'm also interested in hypnotherapy. And so I started studying hypnotherapy, and then neuro-linguistic programming, and also timeline therapy. And really, I just blend everything that I work with, because no tool suits everyone, so I just think, my ultimate intention is to help people feel free. That's why I liked your name, Freedom Network. I also like your current name. And I love the fact that might change too. But, I like the whole idea of being in a rebellion. I'm up for that.
Me too.
And so I just, my thing is helping people feel as free as possible, so they can question themselves, question what's going on, and find themselves in a new place of honesty or clarity. and that they can make their own way. And I provide tools to help people do that. And it might be astrology. That's what I'm known for. Every time I veer away from it, people bring me back to it. But truthfully, I channel, and I use subliminals. So I was doing a reading for somebody, an astrology reading, and all of a sudden this kind of spontaneous hypnotic script came up, and I just went with it. I've learned to not question myself too much when I'm working with people, and it was just what they needed. It was just what they wanted. So a bit of everything, really.
Oh my God.
And I've missed out a lot in the middle.
That's a lot of stuff, isn't it?
I had my normal years in my 20s. I had a
Like,
very normal relationship, and I worked for a bank and worked for an insurance company whilst studying on the side and wishing I could be myself. And I had a house and a car and that 9 to 5 job, and it worked for a while, and I did really well at it. But my soul felt like I was, I just felt like I was being strangled slowly to death. And so I managed to extricate myself from that relationship in a really kind of pity me kind of way. I was really bad on myself. And then I started to repiece things, and I've lived in 5 countries, and I was really fortunate to meet my harebrained but rather brilliant husband. And then my life really changed. And now I'm a stay-at-home mum,
yeah.
hypnotherapist, astrologer, and live in Portugal.
So how did you come to live in Portugal?
Well, truth be known, Carl, he has another family, and they were growing up, and they'd all, him and his previous wife had split up. And when we met, we both had this lust for freedom, and we knew we were going to have kids together. And I don't know, we weren't really that comfortable with what we saw as a blueprint for us in the UK. So at that time, so when we met like 13 years ago, it was costing maybe 3 wages to be able to run a home in the UK. And I knew I wanted kids, and he knew he wanted to provide me with kids, and start a family together. But when we looked at how that might happen, it seemed quite bleak. We wouldn't see our kids. We'd both need to work. And, I was very fortunate enough to grow up with my mum at home. And I don't necessarily think it's the right thing or the only thing. I think family structures can, they occur as they occur. But I knew for me, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mum. I wanted to be at home and enjoy my kids and have a really integral role. And so we were thinking, how the hell can we do that? And, we manifested quite purposefully and quite quickly, actually, a role where Carl was working and we had accommodation with his job, and we had a great time for 5 years. And I was a stay-at-home mum, and we were living on a 90-acre site of beauty in the rolling hills of Devon. We were working for a charity called Hannah's at Silhane, which was really in alignment with our vision and values. And we had this tiny flat overlooking this amazing view. And, we'd manifested that we wanted to be somewhere where there was a community, an organic garden, loads of beautiful nature, and all sorts of different things. And he got this job, and they invited us to live there, and to volunteer and to work, and also to act like caretakers. And that's what we did for 5 years. And then we were just thinking, this isn't going to work. We want our own place. And we were really thinking, neither of us are people that do jobs just for money. And so we've never really been high earners. We wanted to live with the freedom to do what we wanted when we wanted. And, I wanted to be at home. And so we chose Portugal because its consciousness reminded us a little bit of 1970s Britain. Family units are still together. They're really joyful. They're very strong family units. And you didn't need to have 3 wages to be able to afford a home. When we first came over, we could live off 1 full-time wage, and we were hoping that we could live off 2 part-time wages. And the truth is it's not as easy to make our money go as far as we wanted, but we both work maybe 3/4 hours, so we're both working from home and we're juggling around our work schedule. But we live a great life. It's really warm here. It's loads of nature. When we go out, people love seeing kids. It's a really free life as far as we can see. And we live by the sea in this amazing place.
Oh, it sounds like absolute bliss.
Yeah, it is. I mean, another thing, like in the UK, like raising families in the UK, there were horror stories that if you deviated from the main culture in terms of medical ideas, educational ideas, that they'll put social services on you. So I heard stories about families that chose not to vaccinate their children, that had their children removed. Now, as a new mum, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God, that's scary, because I've had reactions when I've been vaccinated. And so I didn't want to go ahead with anything in the UK in the same way. I wanted to take my time. And if I was going to do vaccines, I'd do them in my own way, when my kids' bodies could take them. I did a lot of research. And so knowing that I was going against the political ideologies of the UK was a bit scary. When I lived in Bali for a while, and I met quite a few other rebels, and I learned about different global agendas sort of about 15 years ago. And I thought, yeah, if everything gets locked down, the UK could be a terrible place to be, because it only ever has like 3 days worth of food. And farming has been stopped, or it's made, that UK governments have made it very difficult for farmers to compete with like Spanish farmers, and they get loads of imports and stuff, and so there's less produced in the UK. And I just thought, that seems a bit dodgy.
Yeah,
And so
wow.
I thought, being in Portugal, we're on a big continent, and the people in Portugal, they know how to grow food. So there's a whole bunch of reasons.
Yeah,
It wasn't just money. It was also, they really love their medical system too. But I wanted to kind of live in between the gaps of being British and living in Portugal. And we kind of do. We are signed up in Portugal properly. But we don't really declare ourselves. We're not saying, here we are, come and investigate ourselves. We just kind of keep ourselves to ourselves. So
do you think you'll live there forever, or?
I don't know. I heard Carl say to people yesterday that we were hanging out with, he said, oh yeah, I want to stay here forever.
Yeah.
But I've moved around a lot, and he has moved around a lot. So I don't know. But
So who
if we
knows?
move somewhere else, it will be more fabulous. Like, it would be really a shame for us to leave where we are, because it's really nice. It's really natural. And our kids are learning to swim in the Atlantic Ocean, in this really quiet part of the Atlantic Ocean. And it's really lovely.
Is it a surf beach?
11 kilometers up the road is the most famous surf beach in Europe.
Oh, right.
But where we are, we're in a little cove, and so it's really calm. But
Oh,
like,
right. Yeah.
if we go like 2 kilometers up the beach, people die every year. Not like loads, but there's usually 1 or 2 deaths a year up that coastline, because it's quite savage at times. It's got a very strong undercurrent. But where we are, it's really safe. It's like a paddling pool.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Perfect for our kids. And us,
Oh,
we're not strong swimmers.
it sounds like the perfect. It sounds like the perfect place to live.
Yeah, and it will be, as long as we can, as long as we feel like we live freely, and if we don't, then we'll be off and probably into the countryside where, where we can be a bit more anonymous and
Yeah.
just
I,
kind of live according to our values.
I think that it's getting less and less freedoms around the world. But
Mm.
I'm feeling that they're going at a rate of knots.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite disturbing when you see it. Like, if you've got a mindset of freedom and wanting to do things your own way, it's quite scary. And one thing I've learned is not to get too panicky about it, because there's always going to be loads of people that put their hands up and say, me first, me first. I want to be part of this 15-minute city. This sounds so exciting. Oh, I'm so excited. And so people like get really excited and they put themselves up. I'm always right at the back, not subscribing to things. I take my time. And so I think, we could be some of the last ones that get impacted.
That's what really scares me the most, is that so many people will really want the 15-minute city. So many.
Yeah.
And especially young boys with the new VR, the virtual reality that's coming, with the headsets, and they can design their own reality within the headset, and then they can get all the girls they want, and they don't have to do anything, and they get, the universal basic income that's coming. And I could just see them sit at home, no problem, like not a worry in the world, easy, and get Uber Eats, never leave the house. Yeah, that's
I mean,
that's one thing.
it is a scary vision, isn't it?
Yeah.
One thing I've learned as well, though, in spite of having the same fears as you, Troy, is that what is what's best. So, often, and I heard somebody tell the story. I think is it Pia?
Yeah, she's on your same wavelength.
She was telling a story about, the Vietnamese farmer, that had all these great things happen, and people were saying, oh, that's so good. And he was like, yeah, maybe. And then terrible things happen. They said, oh, that's so bad. And he was like, yeah, maybe. When we look at things from a longer picture, like a longer context, we realize that the stuff that goes wrong is usually the stuff that goes right. And I really like the work of Access Consciousness. Is Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here, and they talk about stuff like that. But they've got this phrase, and it's like, what if the wrongness of you is the rightness of you? And I love that.
Yeah.
So like I apply it to civilization. I think, what if the wrongness of civilization, like where it's going at the moment, and I'm judging it as wrong, what if the wrongness of it is actually the rightness of it? And maybe it has to get so bad that everyone wakes up and says, oh my goodness, what have we manifested here?
Yeah. But I think it's only bad for older people like us, that if you're a young kid and that's all you know, well then that's just what is.
Well, yeah, I can see that. And I also think at some point they'll get bored, and they'll be, I mean, some won't, but I mean, I remember in my 20s, late 20s, I got a bit depressed and I got really hooked on antidepressants. And I just really wanted to be able to cope with life. And so I kept it really on like the down, like there were no sudden surprises, no sudden little jaunts out. I started to take loads more antidepressants than I was supposed to. So, I mean, and that was early on in the internet. So I was able to order stuff online before there were loads of checks and balances in place. So I got a little bit hooked on Prozac. And after a while, I started to realize that my experience was very much that life was really boring. I didn't have any drama. I didn't have any excitement. I had this kind of fake, it's okayness. And after a while, there was something inside me that says, okay, I want to feel pain again. Okay, I want to, because like you can't feel excitement if you can't really truly feel pain. And so I think a lot of these kids that are growing up, and a lot of I met before I met Carl, I met a lot of guys in their 40s that were living like teenage boys who had manufactured this life for themselves, where they hadn't needed to have intimacy, where they could keep intimacy at bay because they had enough money, and they had grown-up boys' toys, and they were like little geeks at home, and nothing wrong with them. They were enjoying their lives. So I've met women who've been like that. I think sometimes having a relationship is the check and balance that we all need, because we get a partner that says, come on, you can't live like this. And it gives you something to strive for, doesn't it? But I just think in the end, life takes over, and we either strive to grow, or we wither and die, we desiccate. So I think what's happening right now is what's meant to happen.
Yeah, I think so too. And I was telling Pia about it because I was talking to my good mate Craig. He just come back from Bali, actually, from a 3-week. He's just turned 60. Yeah, 3 weeks over there celebrating his 60th. Yeah, and
Oh,
I've just
congrats.
come to the realization that yeah, it is whatever's going to happen is just going to happen, and the
Yeah.
I don't think there's any stopping it, and I think the hammer's just going to hit, and it'll probably be a good thing for humanity because yeah, then we'll realize what we had, and then
Yeah.
hopefully we can get back to it at some stage.
Yeah.
But there
Yeah.
is a lot of good talk about it. I mean, there is a lot of high vibrational people around, and so I think just the idea is to try and hang out with them.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you hang around with great people, you stay in the vibration of fun and possibility, don't you? And for
Yeah,
me, this is possibility and freedom. I mean, that's not the greatness that everybody has, but that's my recipe for it. That's my coding. But I realized actually during these COVID years,
yeah,
and I
yeah, yeah, yeah,
put funny years in because I
yeah,
don't really believe my eyes. We're told what we're to expect and what we have to believe in. And I just think,
yeah,
I've experienced too much to think, oh, yeah, sure. I'm going to take that reality that you're pushing on me. But I realized early on that that wasn't necessarily a legit reality. And there were some very deep questions that came up very quickly where things made no sense. Um, and at first I felt like it was a moral duty to say to people, oh my God, hang on. We've been told this, and we've also been told that, and we're also being told to trust the science. And yet when you add this and this together, that makes absolutely no sense.
yeah,
But there's some kind of, oh yes, but you just trust it. And if you somehow disagree with it, that you're a bad person. Hang on a second, like let's examine this. And so I was very public and very open, and I got my Facebook pages got some like wrist slaps, and I got put in the corner
yeah.
in the naughty
In
corner,
the
like a
naughty
toddler.
corner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I was on the naughty step.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
crazy times. I knew it was a
yeah,
hoax within the first 2 weeks because
yeah,
when everyone was dropping dead, right, in China and in Italy,
yeah,
and I actually did think I thought, wow, this could be real because you don't know. And so
yeah,
I said to mum and dad, stay home, because it's supposed to be old people, because they're getting in their 80s, and
yeah,
I said, oh look, I'm healthy as an ox, so I said,
yeah,
I'll go do all your shopping, and you just stay home, and then I'll do the shopping for the family. I'll put myself at risk because I'm healthy. There's nothing's going to stop me. So, anyways,
yeah.
I get to the
Commando
shop.
as well. No offense.
Yeah. And I get to the shops and it's shoulder to shoulder, hustle, bustle, everyone's fighting for toilet paper. And I'm going, hang on a minute, this doesn't add up.
Yeah,
If it was really that contagious and that bad, there's no way that we'd be allowed to go to a supermarket. And it was like, I'm telling you, it was packed. Like you couldn't move. There was trolley to trolley and people fighting. And I went, oh, this is ridiculous. This is just one big hoax.
yeah,
Well, not a hoax, but hoax is probably the wrong word, but a manipulation of the people.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned about China and Italy because about 3 weeks before it happened, like publicly, we were like Carl's got a daughter that was living in Italy, and I've got a best friend that was living in China, or Hong Kong, and we'd heard about what was going on there, and so Carl and I said, okay, if this is real, we need to lock down. So we actually locked ourselves down 2 weeks before it was announced. And I phoned my parents like you did,
yeah,
I said, Mom, Dad, stay home. Summit's coming. Go out now, stock up your cupboards. This is what you need to buy. And because I had a prepper's mindset, I already had like a long list of things. In fact, I had a lot of it at home anyway. And get a colloidal silver machine, do this, this. And they were like, Louisa, we're off on holiday. We're not going to lock down. This is made up. It's another one of these stories that you tell us. So we're not going to do it. And then all of a sudden, we were locked down, and I sent Carl out, my husband, and he was like, I'm healthy as an ox, I'm going
yeah,
to do it. But we had like little routine. I'd ordered a UV light, which never did actually arrive, but we would leave all the shopping outside in the sun and spray it. And we
yeah,
we made protocol straight away about how we were going to live. And then when it was announced, within 2 weeks, I just thought, like well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, so we can go out between these times, but not these times. Because if we go out during these times, suddenly it's dangerous. And we started observing, well, like, I mean, if it was really, really terrible, why would they let people go out for walks? Why would they let anything happen? And the fact that they were trying to negotiate with people how they could still be free, but still save themselves from the worst disaster mankind ever knew just made no
Yeah.
sense.
It made no sense to me. And then you weren't allowed to stand up at before they locked the pubs down. You weren't allowed to stand up, but you could sit down, with your mask on, and then take your mask off to have a drink. I'm going, that's ridiculous. Like, really?
Yeah, yeah. It's utter crap.
Yeah. And it was like so weird, like, because you're looking around thinking, how come I'm the only one that can see this? Why can't everybody else look at what I'm looking at? But anyway, I think it's just,
This was the biggest gaslighting operation known to mankind. Well, actually, I think there are bigger ones. There are things that we all think of as being completely real, and in my experience, they're not. But it's a huge gaslight. And then anyone that did stand in their power and say, "Hang on a second, like we can see these things. Let us tell you what we can see." We were just absolutely like rubbished.
yeah,
The media started to put out the kind of arguments teaching people how to deal with it. So they put
yeah.
out arguments like,
Well, we had
oh, are you
concentration
going to
camps
kill
built in.
grandma? Yeah,
Yeah,
I saw.
yeah. Like it was like very close that we were going to be locked up because Kerry and I, we didn't have the injection. And so it wasn't far away. I could see that they had all the camps ready.
Yeah.
But because there was such a big protest, I think they realized that if it'll just get out of hand, the protesting. So they ended up, luckily it ended up turning around and we didn't end up getting locked down. Well, not locked down, but locked
Incarcerated for the
away.
rest of
Yeah, locked away.
the
Yeah, because people are saying, what are we going to do with these people? And I'm
Yeah,
thinking, what do you mean? What are we going to do with them? We just let them walk around like, look. Yeah. Anyway, we shouldn't really get
yeah.
onto that topic. It's just,
No,
that's,
no, it's fine. I'm happy to go anywhere you want to go, but
yeah.
yeah, you're
Um,
right. I mean, I don't want to get your channel shut down.
get it shut down before it starts. That's
Yeah, no,
that's
don't.
that's funny, eh? Hey,
You're doing
what uh like you're such a intriguing person, like how you
right.
because you can see all these things in other dimensional realms or something, like spiritual beings or like what when you say you channel something, I've never spoken to anyone that channels something. What does it actually do? Like how does it work?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, first of all, to answer that question, I want to just start by addressing how I could see that things in this world weren't quite right.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that comes from being an outsider, and putting yourself outside of society slightly. If you never feel like you want to fully join or commit, it's very easy to see what's going on. And like when you're in the middle of something, you can't see it. Like when I mean, you haven't had this because you've been married forever. But like with my first relationship, when I split up, quite a few people around me said, "Oh yeah, we could see that." And I was like, "What?" Yeah, we could see you weren't going to end up getting married and having kids. Yeah. And it's like when you're in it, you can't see it. But
Yeah.
when you're outside it, you can see it. You can have an opinion about everybody else's relationship,
Yeah.
can't you, on the outside, or
Yeah.
how they manage their kids and stuff. So I think just putting yourself on the outside. I was bullied a little bit as a kid, maybe because I was a bit dreamy and not quite there, but also I had a limp. I had red hair, still do, had glasses, and I was a bit of a creep at school, So I wanted to do well with the teachers. I was always not wanting to get in trouble, and so yeah, I wasn't very popular. And that really helped me. I was able to see things from an outside perspective. And I've always kept that. I was outside of my family, so I guess I would have been the black sheep of my family. The sibling that came after me, my little sister, was, very normal and really fitted in with my mum and dad. Like my mum and dad were these kind of, I guess, posh and becks from the 60s and 70s. They married in 69 and they had me in 74, but they were like posh and becks. And then they had this like little weird kid that didn't quite fit in, and then they had my little sister that was a bit of a superstar. she looked really gorgeous and she looked really normal. And I was the only redhead in my family. So, I always felt like I was on the outside, and that was okay. I like it. I don't want to be on the inside of things necessarily. It gives you a bit of a perspective. In terms of channeling, I think everyone can do it. But not everyone wants to. And it's not something I consciously choose to do. It's just always happened. So as a kid, I used to see things and my parents would try and tell me that I wasn't seeing what I was seeing. And so I got quite well practiced at holding what I knew. It was like a knowing. I knew some things were happening, and I had to really believe it, even when I was told from an early age that it wasn't true. And around the age of about 7, I probably stopped saying, "Oh yeah, I know this," and because it was like a fart in a spacesuit. Nobody wanted it, and it was just
It's a good
I
analogy,
stopped.
though.
But, when I was
Like
16,
it.
actually following a routine vaccine, funnily enough, I got very ill, and I was diagnosed with glandular fever, which, this is an interesting one. Let's explore this just for a second. I hope you don't mind this little diversion. Glandular fever, the doctors say it's a really, really contagious virus, and it's the kissing disease. You get it from kissing, and I'd never kissed anyone at that point. But anyway, really dangerous. Keep your daughter separated from people because, wow, everyone gets it. It's the kissing disease. And no one in my family got it. That's interesting. I wonder what viruses really are. But anyway, I got poorly after a vaccine in my teens. And when I was ill, I was really delirious with fever. And I was lying in bed and heard this really clear voice in my head that said, "Get a pen, get a piece of paper." And I was a bit out of it. Then I got a pen and a piece of paper, and then my hand just started writing. And I don't know why I'm holding my right hand up because I'm actually left-handed, but I started writing like poems. They just started flowing through me, and at a rate of knots. And my mum and dad were a bit shocked, and they just kind of called the doctor, I think. And it carried on. And then after that, I felt like this reconnection. And I came across lots of, I think you always find mentors that you need. They always seem to come into your life at the right time. And so I met lots of people who were like clairvoyant, or who channeled, like they would channel a person or a collection of spirits or something like that. And that really wasn't for me. I didn't really like the vibe of like Carol down the road, in the afterlife, coming and saying, "Hello, I've got a white rose for somebody." That wasn't really my thing. And so I kind of discounted it. But then there was this kind of other voice, and it was like my voice, but it also was like every voice I've ever heard. And to me, it just sounds like life. And some people might say, "Oh, that's God or the universe or love." But I just know it to be like trust. And it comes to me in so many different ways. So, for instance, I remember as a teen reading palms. And, when I held the palm of somebody at a party, somebody I'd never met, this black guy, and and I might have been drunk as well, which, which took my conscious mind off. So, I was really in my unconscious, and it was a stream coming through. So anyway, I was holding this guy's hand, looking at it, and I said, "Oh my God, you got this really unusual connection with your family, almost like you're with them all the time." And he broke down and he burst into tears. And he was with this guy, this white guy, and they were like best friends. And he said, "I was adopted into a white family, and look, this is my brother, but he's actually the same age as me. He's my best friend." And there were things that I just didn't know that came through in moments where I would hold a palm, I would look at cards, like when I use astrology, I look at a chart. But at some point, my rational mind passes away and something comes through me, and I don't ask for it to happen. It just does. And I've just learned to trust that. I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, yeah, it's sort of, but
Have you ever had that
it's
sense of knowing, like you've known something like you knew that thing that we were talking about, that everyone like locked themselves up about and rolled up their sleeves and put on masks for, you knew somewhere down inside that it wasn't right. And it's probably not because you like researched it. I mean, that might have helped, but like I research lots of things, and sometimes I think I still don't believe that.
Yeah.
You knew,
I'm
you had
very
a sense.
logical. I'm a very logical person though. So it just, that was more logical for me, that it just didn't, like, I just put one and one together and it didn't come up with two,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Well, that's what I think, but it could have been something else.
yeah. But you had an instinct to even, you had an instinct to question it. A lot of people didn't even
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah. It's a weird road that I've come down. Um, but it's not about me today. As much as I'd like it to make it about me, that's what Kerry says
Oh, we
all the
can do
time.
that. I'm happy to turn the tables.
Kerry always says that. It's always about you.
That's why I like interviewing people on my channel.
Yeah. So is it like Abraham Hicks sort of thing, is it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So can you ask
Mm.
them questions, or is it
What I find, I never ask, like I never, like I know loads of people who actually sit down every day in a very sort of purposeful meditation. They bring their guides in, they bring protection around them, and they'll say, okay, what do I need to do about this? And they'll wait patiently. I'm not like that at all. So what happens for me is I go for a walk, and I've learnt to ask a question like, I wonder what would bring me the most joy right now. Or I'll be washing up and I'll be thinking, oh, I wonder how it can get better than this. And so I give myself little questions all the time. And then I get the answer. And so, the answer might be a sign. So I might see something that comes up. It might be a number plate. It might be, I know I was joking about white roses. It might be a little white feather comes past, or a little bird, or some kind of animal all of a sudden crosses my path. And then I think, okay, there's an answer there. And I'll like look at what that power animal means, or just like look into the animal's eyes, and all of a sudden I get something. Which sounds really crazy and weird, but I'm following a trail of breadcrumbs usually. But when I'm working with people, I'll be looking at their birth chart, and as I'm talking, all of a sudden this kind of this stream of consciousness comes up. And it might be because I say, and as I'm looking at your chart, I've got this question. And this question is, what is it that's bringing you happiness right now, and what's preventing you? And then I carry on, and then all of a sudden the answer starts tumbling out, and I might get visions. I might hear something. Sometimes I get a feeling or a sensation in my body. And as I start to talk about it, more information comes out. So if anything, I'm just following clues and asking good questions. So, I might also become a really good detective or something like that. I feel like I'm a bit of an investigator rather than, I really struggle with, I know a lot of beautiful things and great things happen in our world that come through via a channel. I really like the Course in Miracles, though I haven't studied it. I really like, well, I mean, you had, is it Lucy talking to you about
Yep.
human design?
Yep.
The whole system apparently was downloading.
Yeah.
I totally believe in the possibilities of that. What I don't hold true is that one system works for everyone, or one system is the ultimate system. And one thing I observe is that every time someone talks about this new system, it's the best and it replaces everything that's come before it.
Mm.
I think everything is a tool. And you being an electrician, you'll know that you can use, because you're really good as an electrician, I'm pretty sure of that. But you'd have had terrible tools, but be able to use them well, right? Because you
Yeah.
had experience.
Yeah.
Then there's really good tools in the hands of idiots. You won't get good results. So I think every modality of healing or expression or how to find freedom, it's only as good as the consciousness that's using it.
And
So, you can have human design and it's the ultimate system that supersedes astrology. But if it's not in the right hands, it will never be as good as the system it's supposedly replaced.
yeah, I don't think there is any real one size fits all thing. It can't, because each person each person has their own reality inside their brain.
Exactly.
So we can't, because when you look at something, the waves go into your mind, then your mind produces an image, and then that
Yeah.
image goes through to your default, and whatever your default says that image is, then it gets produced inside your mind. And so
Yeah.
every single person's got their own image and their own default. Like, even it's such a weird thing to think about that, like, even me talking to you, you think, like, if I manifested that somehow inside my mind, like the reality, you're thinking, like, is that really a reality? That's
Yeah.
just, it's a strange thing to think about, because, um, yeah, because everything's just in your own mind, and
Yeah.
then, like, all yours is in your mind, and that next person's in their mind, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if you believe we're all connected, I don't know if you do or not. Do you believe we're all connected
Yeah,
or?
because we're all the flower of life, the flower of life, all the circles.
Mhm.
Yeah, I believe that that's the main program, and that's why we're all connected. The main program is the flower, and then every flower has another flower within it. And it's unlimited flowers. So if you can go to any country in the world, any it's everywhere. It's in every country. It's on every thing. It doesn't matter what country you go to. There's a flower there somewhere, on a painting, or on a stone, or on something. And so I believe that that's the program. That's the program that runs the world. Because there's a mathematical thing, but
Yeah.
because it's a circle, that allows it to be, um, not rigid. It can move.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pliable. Yeah, so that's why I believe it's a program. But and it has to be a program, because otherwise, manifesting couldn't work. It's impossible. How could it work if it wasn't
Really?
a program?
Hmm.
Like, it has to be.
Do you,
It
do you think
has
people?
to
Do you
be.
think people? Yeah, but I mean, people can manifest accidentally. But is that just because they don't know that they're
No, there
accidental?
is no accident.
Right.
Yeah, it's just that unknown. I say unknowingly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're manifesting unknowingly. Like, I told you the story about my birth father. You know how I stayed
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
his house. Like, you can't.
Mm.
That's like impossible. You can't. Um, yeah, you couldn't do that. Like, that's not chance. It's impossible to be chance. But so many things aren't chance. But then it all comes down to your beliefs. There's so many little things. We had a big discussion with Pia the other day on it. Actually, it hasn't been released yet, but because she has a bit different views than me. But yeah, I just believe it's a program, and that we're all got our own programs, and no one's got the right program, but you all have got the right program for
Oh,
you.
you've got the right program for you, haven't you?
Yeah,
Like when
yeah,
you're saying, "Oh, it's about you today, not about me." I was thinking, well, we're both the same person expressed differently,
yeah,
seeing things through our own eyes, but maybe actually this is about you as well. And I think, like we're co-creating this.
yeah,
Your questions are bringing this out, and if you didn't ask the questions, so it is your program as well.
yeah,
I think everything is a program as well.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
I mean, my
astrology
experience
couldn't work
taken.
either. If you think
No,
about it, that couldn't work. Like, how could it work? How could you do a birth chart and show your um, probabilities? Because everything's just probability, a probability of where you are going to go in your future. Like, that couldn't. How could that be? If everything was chance,
yeah,
like, there would be no such thing.
yeah. I mean, you were saying at the start, and I heard you say it to Pia and also Lucy that would it be useful to know your type, or
Yeah,
like for a child, to grow up with that? And I don't know. I think it's a useful blueprint for people who need it. Like I actually did a reading. I did a live reading for a child this week, and what really came up for me was, especially as a mom as well, um, I could see that this child had might have. I never like to talk in
absolutes.
definite.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolute.
yeah,
And I realized, as I said, never again. That's another absolute.
yeah,
Absolutes are in our language, littered
yeah,
everywhere
yeah,
and tumble over, aren't they?
yeah,
But no, I like to talk in terms of possibility and freedom, and you can only, not only, it's more likely to happen when you're not using absolute language. But one thing I could see was a tendency for this child to take things very, very seriously, and to judge stuff. And so, my advice to the parents was, you might want to choose to teach your child about freedom as early as possible, so that they realize that the outcomes they get are from the choices that they make. So if you give them a choice of two things, they get to experience what it's like to make a choice and sit in the results of it. A lot of parents, when we're raising children, we're always saying, this is what you need to do now. This is what you need to do now. And a lot of parenting is really,
Yeah.
do this or else. And so
Yeah.
we don't really learn
Box
about,
parenting.
and we never learn about, or not never, but it takes us a lot longer to learn about making personal choices and living with the results of our personal choices. And so we're trying to raise our kids as great manifestors, and actually they do quite well, because they live exactly the kind of life that they want. And we're always teaching them about personal choice, and people probably look at us and think, you give your kids way too much freedom to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, in the way they want to do it. But what I think is, actually, we're teaching them to use their brains. We're teaching them to make a choice, experience that choice, review that choice, and then think, do I want to make that choice again? We're giving them the space to do that. So I think if you can look at somebody, and one of our children has obviously, like, when I looked at her birth chart, I was like, oh my goodness, this one needs a lot more structure. And of course, Carl and I aren't very structured, and our two boys aren't very structured. And our little daughter, from word go, we started calling her grandma, because even before she was verbal, she was gathering us up. She was always trying to organize us. And now she's 7 and she's still trying to organize us. So if we don't give her enough direction or enough boundaries, she starts to pull them around her. So, I need to give her more, and I do give her more, because I can see her chart, and her chart is asking for it. Our two boys need as much freedom as possible, and they need a little bit of cuddling. So I think
I think all boys need cuddling though.
yeah, actually,
That's why
I think you're right.
it's a weird thing. We're providers and protectors. That's our only job, but we need a lot of loving.
Yeah, you do, because, like, where do
Yeah.
you learn to have faith in your abilities,
Yeah.
and where do you learn passion to be great leaders? Yeah, so I do think boys need a lot of cuddling and a lot of looking
Yeah.
after.
Well, that's why they call them mummies boys, isn't it? That's,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and mums like to, a lot of mums, not all mums, like to give their kids a. I know Kerry, she's always giving out more than she's got. So, you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
which is very much a woman thing as well, isn't it?
yeah. She's actually a really good mum. Probably
Of course she is.
too
You
good
would be with
sometimes.
her.
She's not that good to me, but good to everyone else. No, I'm only joking. Don't believe that, Kerry. She'll be listening to this, and then I'll be copping it.
Oh, bless her. Hi, Kerry.
Yeah. No, she's excellent. Yeah.
Of course,
Um.
she's been together for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. 30. What are we this year? 30, 31 years
That's
coming up.
amazing.
Yeah, but time's not real,
And
is it?
no, well, yeah, I agree with that. But if I was to look at your charts together, I could see why you've been together as long as you have.
Yeah, because you're going to do the two charts together.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Yeah, good. We'll have
And
to.
I'll either, so I'll book a time to
Yeah.
talk with you and Kerry together, or not, or maybe a joint email to find out what you both like to know. And then what I tend to do is record remotely. So I gather all the data and then draw up the charts and then just record an
No, I
MP3
asked
for you.
her. She said just say whatever. She doesn't care. She's like me.
Okay.
Yeah. I said to her about it. She goes, "Oh yeah, no worries."
Oh, she sounds
Yeah.
just like you.
Yeah. Yeah. She's very much where we're very similar but different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very similar but different. But yeah, we don't. You know, life's too short. To worry about. Well, not short. Yeah, it's pointless. I think I told you. I'm not sure who I told. I heard that thing. a while ago is that no one's going to remember you when you're dead. So who cares now? You know?
Wow.
Yeah. So now, what's
I
the
don't know
point?
if that inspires me. I don't know if that inspires me to have a better life or a worse life.
Well, no, but
I
not
feel
worry about it.
embraced.
I think it just, I think it just
Yeah.
brings a thing instead to think, well, because you're always worried that in case you say the wrong thing, that you'll upset someone or, you know, but now I just don't care.
Ah,
Well, not that I don't
okay.
care. They don't care is the wrong language. It's, I just be yourself and
Yeah.
let it flow. However the cards roll, that's how they roll. And as long as it's
Exactly.
not detrimental to anybody and you're not, um, dragging someone else down or you're not abusing them or, no, you
Mm,
can't do that. But for
mm.
your own self, if you just say how it is, and then
Yeah.
people can accept it or they don't accept it. If they don't accept it, well, they don't accept it.
I mean, that's what you're describing there. Really reminds me of like my biggest learning about this COVID time,
Yeah, yeah,
and like I used to really find myself a bit liberal in my viewpoints when I was growing up. I grew up with quite conservative parents in quite a conservative area, and felt myself being a lot more liberal in my views. But a few years before COVID happened, we had Brexit going on in the UK,
yeah.
like getting ready to separate from Europe. And all of a sudden, these mild mannered liberal people who were talking about that we should have personal choice and stuff, all of a sudden started to sound like fascists. You know, they were saying, if you do this, it means you're not a compassionate person or you're not European if you make this decision. And I was like, whoa, my goodness, I'm really not aligned with these people anymore. And one thing I've noticed during like the COVID thing is that there were lots of people saying, if you do this and if you do that. So people wanted to have their style expressed, but wouldn't allow other people the chance to express their styles. So everyone was making their survival based on everyone doing things in the way that they demanded, which reminds me very much of the gender debates that are going on right now. There's the race debates. There's so many different talking points right now whereby people are asking everyone to change their words, their narrative, their voice, their direction to keep some people happy. And actually, what I realized was in my own way, I had been demanding the same. I'd been saying, by telling people, hang on a sec, I don't think what's going on right now is legit. I actually think this is a massive gaslighting. I think we're all being deceived. We're being prepared to go into internment camps, and they're going to take away our money. They're going to enforce medicine. They're going to enforce education that maybe isn't for the best of them. And I started to smell a rat, and I started to talk very vociferously about it. But my biggest learning is I can't want to live freely whilst impressing upon people that this is what they have to do. And so my biggest learning is actually we can't be free whilst we're not letting others be free. And so it's changed the way I am in my relationship with Carl. So there were loads of times when I thought I had the upper hand because the way I was being possibly was more moral or was better for our actual family. But using my morality and my judgments to get him to change his ways about like probably just like putting the cap on the toothpaste or something, it's just really, it's not right. You can't, or just in saying it's not right is me impressing my way, but I can't. What I've realized for me is that if I want to live freely and if I stand for freedom and I stand for possibility, then I should by default let other people stand for possibility and freedom too. And I believe fully, but I don't know, it might not happen. I believe fully that if we're all standing for our own freedom and we're standing for everyone else's freedom, we might decide not to be assholes to each other. And so it's a bit like what you were saying, we can be who we want to be, but let's not hurt people, so I think if we were all truly free and able to start to express the beauty in us and start to express the positivity in each and every one of us and start to realize who we really are, we might stop being such arseholes. We might stop trying to hurt people, steal from people, and hurt, like deceive them. But I think it could take a long time to unravel. There are no guarantees. But for me, trust, living in trust and giving trust, and also using discernment. So, it's okay to see someone might rip you off, and then you might just like move away from them. You take your choice somewhere else. But one thing that's come out of this whole time is I choose to trust more, but not unwisely. And I think I need to respect everyone's decisions. If they want to be part of a medical experiment to save the world, that's okay for them. And I reserve the right to live my life freely too.
Yeah. And I think that's I think that's like perfectly said. And
Oh, thank you. So quiet then. I thought, oh no, I went off on one.
No, that's like, and that is exactly what I've been trying to say. But you have a way better way with words than me.
Oh,
So it's if everybody, this is the whole thing. This is the whole reason why I'm doing the podcast and everything that I'm doing is to try and get people to understand that they have all this power within them to be able to be free to choose. You don't have to choose the choice that you've been given.
yeah.
And there is actual choice that you can make within your own mind to do whatever you wish to do with. But I think people are so herded. I don't know, but I feel that the younger kids are starting to. Because I know I speak to my daughter a lot about things, and I think the younger people are starting to realize that the world that we've been sold isn't the real world, and they're starting to see that things aren't adding up. I say, yeah, and they're the ones that can change the world, not us older people. We can't really do much at all, but the younger people, if they start to say, no, we don't accept it, we're not accepting that reality, and we want this reality, if everyone just thought like that, the world could change, could be such a better place to live.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of people realizing that they do have a choice. That's
Yeah.
the thing. That's the bit that's the hardest bit. But it's like an alcoholic, isn't it? And you said the same thing before about when you were inside the relationship, that you didn't know that the relationship wasn't for you, but everyone else knew it wasn't for you.
Yeah.
So any one of your friends could have said, you know what, that relationship's not for you, and I don't know why you're doing that, and I don't know why you're doing this, and I don't know, and you would have said, oh, piss off, I don't be your friend anymore.
Exactly. And that's the reality. I wouldn't have listened to them anyway.
Yeah.
And truth be told, actually, I did know it wasn't the right one for me, but I wasn't ready to admit it to myself. So, I was living in a kind of psychosis of pretending to be, yay, relationship. But at the back of my mind, I had doubts.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. And that rips people apart.
And I think that's what's happening with all the rest of society. I think people, they want it, they can see it, but they don't want to believe it, because that means that every single thing you've been taught is a lie. That's what you have to come to. And even like all the sick care professionals, then when they work out that the whole, pardon?
Sick care professionals.
Yeah. When they work out that the whole thing is just a big money grab for the pharmaceutical industry, and that the whole thing's designed to keep you sick, like that means that puts their whole life at odds with it, because they think they're doing good, but all they're doing is propagating the sick care system. And so I can see it's even like teachers and things like that, like then that would have to mean that everything they've ever taught anyone is a lie, so like it's pretty hard. Like it's hard if you've spent your whole life teaching someone something and it's the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I can see how it's tough.
I really feel for people like that, that might later have a realization that, they've created some harm. I do think we all create harm without meaning to.
Yeah.
And I also think that even when they might have been teaching the wrong things or practicing the wrong things that were harming people, that there still would have been something great about what they were doing that would have been received. So like some of the doctors that may have done things, well, I've been poisoned by my doctor as well. I didn't say that. I was left in hospital after being given the wrong drugs. But, like the care that you might get from feeling that someone's listened to you might just be the thing that actually heals you.
Yeah. Yeah.
The drugs are just there as a kind of illusion. They're there
Yeah.
to, like, think something's happened, but actually what's really happened is someone has been able to say, man, I feel shit, I feel really sick, and the doctor says, yeah, I hear you, here we go, this might help. So it might just be the fact that someone releases their vulnerability for a moment and feels supported by a complete stranger.
Yeah.
That might be magic that needs to happen.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's why it's the alternate, the alternate, the alternate healthcare industry.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're trying to do. They're actually trying to um, help humanity and to get them off their drugs, because you don't generally you don't need a drug, like you said. You probably just need to get a different perspective or an energy change. Like if you can shift your energy around and change the way you look at something, then life. Well, I think there is a saying about it, that the way, if you change the way you look at life, life looks at you differently. There's some sort of saying like that. I can't think what it is.
Yeah. I love that.
But yeah, I don't know. It's big. It's a huge topic.
A massive topic. We could be talking for years about this,
I
Troy.
know, and we're coming up to an hour, so that hour went very fast.
Yeah, it's good. I've got to get ready to
Yeah,
join Mr. M on his show in a
yeah,
second.
I know. And
Completely different vibe there.
go and have some fun. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, no, this was fun too. I really
yeah.
enjoyed it.
Well, thanks very much for coming on the show. I think we might have to do another one, because there's so many still heaps of questions that I want to ask you, and that we went off topic as I do.
Oh no, I mean, I'd love to ask you stuff as well. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
we might do
conversation is.
another one next week, and to
Yep.
delve a bit deeper into some of these other topics.
I'm happy to turn up at the same time next week.
Yeah, well, I think we might do that, because I think there's still a lot of things that I want to ask about the other realms, that we were talking about, because that really interests me as well. There's so many things. But
Well, do you
anyway,
know what? I mean,
yep,
there's so many things I'd like to say about astrology, actually, because there are some parts of
yeah,
it that I resonate with, which are actually the patterns. I love the patterns. I love the astronomy of it, even though I'm not entirely sure I believe in planets and stars, and I'm not even sure I believe in all that. So that's another conversation to work through. But there are aspects that really work and aspects that really don't. And I think it's important to explore that tools can be used. Like I said, doctors, the thing that they might do well might not be the thing that they think they're doing. And that might be true of astrology too, and every different modality.
Oh yeah,
Another rabbit hole
right.
for us to
Yeah,
dive
another rabbit
into.
hole. But I think on our next one, we will definitely go into all those topics more. So anyone
Yeah,
that's
sure.
listening, there's definitely going to be a part 2, maybe a 3. It's like when Craig and I
Sounds
start
good.
talking.
I'm really happy.
Yeah,
I'm happy to.
we started off with a one podcast manifestation, then it turned into 5. So
I'm cool with
so
that.
yeah, so it could end up longer than we think. But thanks very much for your time today, and thanks for getting up early and coming to share your knowledge. And hopefully some people have learned some things today, and another door's open for somebody. If we only help one person, each podcast helps one person, well, that's another person helped.
Do you know what? It may just turn out that it helps both you and I. Like it
Yeah.
unlocks something else, and we have a great day. I
Well,
mean,
funny you
that's
say that. Yeah. Like every time I do one, it helps me. Like every time I
yeah.
go, oh, it changes something in my mind, like a different way I look at something, and go, wow, I didn't really see that before. And now I see it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
All right.
I'm going to have to go, but
Yep.
I mean, that's the funny thing. Like coaching and all this kind of stuff is like buy one get one free. Whoever you work for, you still get some of that free. The
Yeah.
advice you're giving the other person, that person has manifested in your life to teach you something.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much. And we have these
Yeah, thanks for
podcasts.
having me.
Oh, no worries. We have these podcasts. We try and do 3 a week. So uh, we're on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. And if you want to learn more, head over to freedomnetwork.io and then click the free link to come over and see us in Become Limitless. We have challenges and things over there to help you to get in the best shape of your life if that's what you want to do, or head over to Louisa's Feel Good Astrology. She's got plenty over there too for you to learn. So yeah, either way, that's
Yeah.
all. Yeah, we're all about trying to help people. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, thanks very much, and I'll see you again.
All right. Lots of love to everyone that's joined us today. And thank you, Troy. Mwah.